Okay, so good clinical practice. What is good clinical practice? Well, it's this international ethical and scientific quality standard, and that kind of surrounds the conduct, design, and reporting of trials that involve human subjects. I think it's important to note FDA, while we talk about good clinical practice a lot, I work in the Office of Good Clinical Practice, we don't have a standalone definition in our regulations, not standalone. We have a definition that is of GCP that's under 312.120, and for those individuals who are not involved in drug studies, these are the regulations that cover clinical trials that are conducted outside of an IND. So the definition of GCP in 312.120, again, it's defined as the design, conduct, performance, monitoring, auditing, recording, analysis, and reporting of clinical trials in a way that provides assurance that the data and reported results are credible and accurate, that's one. And then two, that the rights, safety, and well-being of trial subjects are protected. So you've got two items of importance there. Where we take our standalone definition primarily from is from, and that actually probably should be updated to the E6R2 addendum, but originally came out in the 1996 ICH E6 Good Clinical Practice Consolidated Guidance. And that, again, talks about the design, conduct, performance, monitoring, auditing, analysis, and reporting in clinical trials. Again, providing the assurance that the data and reported results are credible and accurate. But a little bit differently, the subject protection is worded differently in ICH. They talk about the rights, integrity, and confidentiality of trial subjects. And for anyone that's worked in any sort of aspect in foreign trials, knows that privacy is of high concern for trials that are conducted outside of the US for foreign regulators. So what are the overarching themes of good clinical practice? There's responsibilities. There's responsibilities to the subject. There's responsibilities to the sponsor. There's lots of different types of responsibilities to the regulators. Attention to detail. Documentation is very important. Quality, and that not only includes data and scientific quality, but it also includes ethical quality, as we just heard being discussed earlier, and also process quality. You want to ensure a consistent process throughout the conduct of the trial. There's risk and risk management, and then there's validation, verification, and inspection. So you think of this overarching theme of the goals and principles, trickles down to the roles and responsibilities, and then gets specifically down to the application of the specific clinical trial. So again, the goals of good clinical practice is to provide standards and guidelines for the conduct of clinical research that includes provisions for protecting subjects. So subject safety is important. The rights of the subject are important, and we heard earlier about informed consent. The subjects have a right to be informed about the trial. They have a right to not participate if they don't want to continue participation and withdraw at any time. They have the right to protection of their privacy, and there's multiple other rights that are provided to the subjects in the trial. We also want to ensure the quality and integrity of data research for regulatory decision making. This is based on a scientifically sound protocol that's designed to meet its stated objectives and quality conduct and oversight of the study. So it's really important to have an outcome of reliable data by ensuring that through a quality process, because we don't want to expose these subjects to any unnecessary risks. Because if the data is not any good, then that's an issue for subjecting those subjects to a risk that you're not going to get any data outcome. Again, another goal is assuring the existence and operation of quality systems. It's not only just for the current study, and each party has a responsibility for quality in the conduct of a trial. So I think what's really important and what we try to stress is having written procedures in place. Written procedures in order for the study to be followed consistently throughout the conduct of the trial, and then they're assured through self and cross-evaluation. Quality is also leveraged. So we as regulators can't be out at every clinical site to ensure that the procedures and regulations are being followed appropriately. So at the site level, if you think about it, the quality system at the site level is the IRB. So they're ensuring that the protocol is being followed. They're ensuring that the subjects are being protected appropriately. So that is actually an example of the leveraging that can be done. So we think of, in summary, of good clinical practice. It's kind of this combination of ethics and data quality. So why is it important? It's important because it's a universally recognized requirement for the conduct of research involving humans, and it's critical. It's critical in the conduct of study. It also ensures the public assurance to the right safety and well-being of human subjects involved in the research are being protected. And again, it promotes data integrity and reliability. Do we hear a common theme here? These two things: subject protection, data quality, and reliability. Many countries have adopted GCP principles as laws under regulations, and FDA's regulations for clinical trials have been in effect since the 70s, address both GCP and HSP. So while we don't have, per se, a standalone definition in the regulations, you'll see as we move forward that they're kind of interspersed all throughout our requirements. What constitutes GCP in clinical trials? These are just a few examples. This is definitely not a full list here, but some of the most important things would be an IRB-approved protocol, valid informed consent, and a valid informed consent would be also IRB-approved, a monitoring plan to be in place, and that would ensure quality in the conduct of the trial. There should be an adverse event reporting system in place, proper documentation throughout the course of the trial, and valid data collection and reporting procedures. Again, while we don't have a full standalone definition, if you look at the requirements throughout FDA's regulations that affect clinical trial conduct, you're going to see that there are GCP elements all throughout these, from recording requirements, reporting requirements, human subject protection requirements. They're all scattered throughout the regulations. And I think it's important, in summary, to note that there's not one sole person that's responsible for good clinical practice. It's a shared responsibility amongst everyone that's involved in a clinical trial, from the sponsor all the way down to the subject. If you have a subject that's not following the procedures that are in place for their requirements to participate in the trial, you're not going to have good clinical practice in place. Similarly, if the investigators and study site staff do not follow the procedures that are in place, there won't be good clinical practice built into that trial. And even us as regulators have responsibility for good clinical practice, for ensuring that the requirements are being met. So that's the beginning overview of good clinical practice. What I'm going to